Hello, are we on? Perfect. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Goldfish Brain podcast. My name is Akibu, Builder's Refuge member and Top 10's team player. Top 10's team player. Yikes. Anyways, off to a great start. I'm not sure if I'm going to introduce myself like that, but from the podcasts I've seen, that's how they do it. Everyone's like, oh, hey, what's up? My name's Jared. I'm a CPA. I listen to a lot of financial podcasts, so that's kind of my big thing. But yeah, today I want to just talk to you guys a little bit about Build Battle, which is a game I enjoy a lot, and I just want to talk to you guys about how to get master in the fastest way possible, because a lot of people come into Build Battle trying to get master. It is the rank you achieve at 20,000 score. And for a lot of people, it could be really difficult to get. But if you structure it right, if you plan it right, it could be very simple and very easy to get. So yeah, let's just dive right into it. So to begin, Build Battle has 4 game modes: Guess the Build, Solo, Pro, and Teams mode. And of course, all these modes give you the potential to get score per game. The highest score you can get for solo and guess the build is 25, teams 35, and pro 50. Now, using that, it looks like since the way games are timed out, they're trying to get you to the point where you're achieving 5 score per minute of game time. So teams games are 7 minutes, 7 times 5, 35 points. Pro 10 minutes, 10 times 5, 50. Solo 5 times 5, that's 25, as we all learned in 3rd grade. But yeah, it's pretty interesting, and because of that, the real factor for grinding the game modes out is really just how long does it take, because you can get good at any of these game modes if you just do it enough, and I think that's true about anything in life. So really, just assume, I think it takes the same amount of time to master any of the 4 game modes. And I know there's a lot of people that'll say guess the build's easier because you can use things like wordless, and you can boost and tie with other players, and sure, those are all great things that'll help you win, but a lot of them are kind of cheating. So just assuming you're a fair, legit player, I'd say they all take the same amount of time to kind of master a little bit. And yeah, basically, yeah, so I think teams mode is the best mode for getting score, just because it's it has to be the fastest mode to queue into. There is the least amount of players in game modes like Pro and Guess the Build. Those modes, they take, I don't know, anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes just to queue on bad days. In teams mode, you'll literally queue into a game in 30 seconds to a minute. It's really good. And because of that, you're able to get a lot more score quicker because you're playing more games. You're getting more of a grind up. Another great thing about teams mode is, of course, the voting time. It has the same amount of voting time per build as solo. Well, game modes like Pro have a longer voting time. That kind of hurt Pro mode, so teams mode, it goes by pretty quick, and you get a good amount of score from it, and you can play it very consistently. And yeah, that's, in my opinion, that's the best mode to grind if you're going for score. However, there are some players that are trying to go for things like the AP achievements, and I do know one of them is 250 guess the build wins. So if you're going for that, I would really recommend just trying out Guess the Build for at least the first 250 wins. Then after that, kind of branching off to teams to get score a little bit quicker. But yeah, if you're not really caring too much about the achievements and you just want to achieve master as fast as possible, teams mode's definitely the vehicle to do it with. And yeah, I mean, some strategies I could give for teams mode, of course, are building very big. Reference building is a very good strategy. A lot of players do this thing called non-voting, although I know there's players like Killer Snowgoon that will literally eat you alive if you don't vote. But I mean, honestly, the thing with non-voting is if you vote on a build, it's gonna hurt your score. You're gonna get hurt by voting. So really there's not a lot of motivation to vote unless like you consider like the moral implications of it, and that's kind of the reason why I vote personally. Like I just feel really guilty if I'm not voting on people that are voting for me. But yeah, I guess if you could pull that out of it, you would grind score even quicker because you would definitely increase your win-loss ratio without voting. I mean, we see players like Estelle who like have a foundation of like not voting and pretty high win-loss ratios. So yeah, that's definitely a thing you could do if you're, I guess, not caring about anyone's feelings. I mean, also, if you're just grinding to get master and you're gonna like dip out of the community the second you get it, I feel like you can probably get away with like some of the dirtier techniques like that, or like using a word list. Or I don't know, really. Some people say reference building's dirty, but I mean, not really. I think repeat building's a little dirty, just where you're like doing the same thing over and over, but I mean, I've seen really great players do that. Like Leather, for instance, he does a lot of repeat builds, but every time it gets slightly better. So, I mean, it kind of works for him. But me personally, like, I don't see the point in that. Like, I'm trying to be creative here, but I mean, you gotta just do you. You know, you gotta do your thing, and whatever is gonna like help you grind the most games, do that. Stick to that, because if you're not voting and you're getting like upset with it and you just quit after like 5 games, that's not worth it. Like, especially if like when you do vote, you can play like 20 games. So you got to like definitely look at that and like what is going to get you the highest number per day, because that is super important. And yeah, I did some calculations for you guys. If you wanted to go get master in 3 weeks, that is 952 score a day, but we'll just say 950 because the way Build Battle Score works, you obviously can't get the 2. Now, if you were going for 950 score a day, I would honestly just round it up, go for 1000 score a day, get it in 20 days. It's going to be really difficult at first because you're not going to be like very good at any of the game modes at first, so you're going to struggle getting that first 1k. But then it's going to kind of like be like a snowball, you know, it's going to roll down the mountain and you're just gonna really stack on the score. And I mean, that's really what you try to do. You try to improve at it and you try to stack on score. Like, I'm sure if you guys play games like Bed Wars and Sky Wars, Skyblock, it's the same thing. Like, when you start out, you're obviously not as good as you are like a few months down the road or like a week down the road, because like you're constantly improving the more you do something. And I mean, that goes for anything. Like, personally in my life, I'm investing a lot in stocks, and at first I like had no knowledge about it, but then I started reading and I started putting time into it, and I have a pretty good amount of knowledge on that field. Although I'll probably never give financial advice on this podcast just because the legal implications, of course, you know, I don't want to go to prison or something stupid over that, you know. If I'm going to prison, it's because I'm so damn good at Build Battle. But yeah, anyways, if you were going to do it in 2 weeks, it would be 1428 score. Now, I'll just round that up to 1430 score a day. And what I will say, like, that is possible. It's definitely going to like, kind of like wear you off a little bit. Like, I'm pretty sure if you go up to like the higher scores per day, you're going to kind of like die. But I mean, I don't know. Some players, they literally play hypixel for like 12 hours a day or like 14 hours a day. Like, they just no life it. Like, they just don't have a job, they don't have anything else going on. And if you can do that, then go for it. Honestly, you'll do it in 2 weeks if you can do 1430 a day. Now, I'm pretty sure the big question, the big one everyone's curious and wondering about, how long would it take to get master, like how much score would you need to get master in 1 week? And that is unfortunately a pretty high number. It is twice as much as 2 weeks, of course, and that is 2,857 score a day, which is just absolutely crazy. It's mad. It's insane. I have seen players do that, and I personally know I would not. I would never do that to myself. I care about my mental health. You know, like, I think after a few, like once you pass 1,000 scores, so if you do grind, like, because I did in December, I did every single day in December, I got 1,000 score every day. Boom, boom, boom. Whether I was working, whether I was every day, 1,000 score. And once you pass that 1,000 score, you're pretty tired, you know, you're pretty like worn out. You want to kind of sign out, close your eyes for a bit, read a book, go to bed, something else. It's funny, I actually was like very motivated to like do homework back when I was doing 1,000 score a day, just because that was something that wasn't build battle. So it's definitely interesting how it affects you mentally. And I do know 2,857. That's almost 3 times what I was doing. So I could only imagine like you would probably be dying. I know I talked with players like Exidy, and he back in his grind he was doing. I'm not sure if it was that much. I think it was like 2,000 a day, but I don't know. He might come out and be like, "Oh no, it was actually 5,000 a day." He's crazy, but anyways, I remember he would literally play like he did 72-hour stretches without any breaks, no sleeping, no like, and that is so unhealthy. Like, Jesus Christ, I'm really happy he actually stepped away from the game and like he got a job, kind of got a life going, which good for him. Like, I think a lot of players definitely that would be really beneficial if they like spent less time playing the game. But yeah, it's definitely possible, but I really would not recommend it. I know someone, Columnate is another player who definitely put in a lot of score over weeks. Sarli as well. I know with Columnate, him and me were kind of like neck and neck in score, and one of us was like gonna hit like top 10 on the leaderboard. I kind of just dropped out. I was like, no, I'm good. I don't want to do that to myself. But even though I dropped out, he didn't like slow down to just be ahead of me. He flew ahead of me, and I think he was doing like 2,000 a day for like a hard month maybe. Absolutely crazy madness. I could never do that. But yeah, I mean there's people out there that do that. It's possible. I think to put out those high numbers though, you do have to be at some level of experience with the game. You can't just be coming into it from like nowhere unless you're like this crazy prodigy, but I mean for most cases like it takes a lot of time to kind of refine your skill, refine your styles, and really like kind of know what you're doing on like any theme in the game. I mean, I still know masters that are like really top players and they'll leave games because like they just don't know how to build like themes like stamp for instance or screw or nail, and they just freak out and they just dip because all they build is like noodle dragons. So big yikes. But yeah, I mean very interesting. Something I would recommend too is if you do want to grind a lot of score, another reason why teams is so great is because you're playing teams with another person, and I feel like that kind of gives you some support. It kind of helps you along the way. You have another person kind of like helping you play the game, and if you're lucky enough to VC with them, like then you're talking with someone the whole time, and it's more natural and it's a lot more easier to do than if you just are like a complete psychopath all alone with your computer just playing a solo game mode. I mean, I've heard of guest to build players doing that, and I don't know, the stories I've heard are kind of scary, like lots of depression and just yeah, not the type of vibe you really want in your life. But I mean, if you can personally do that and like you don't get affected, you don't need other people, maybe you're like this extreme introvert, then like sure, go ahead, do it. But teams is the fastest way to get score, and in my opinion it's the most efficient with like just you having people around you and just everything like associated with it. I think the voting in teams is also like the fairest voting out of like the main game modes. I mean, obviously we all know like 1.14 solos is like the easiest one, but I mean that's just I don't know. Who plays like 1.14 solos other than like Killer Snowgoon? Like no one really does. I mean, if you guys are at 1.14, definitely consider switching to 1.8. It's more of a challenge, but I don't know. I think personally it's better than 1.14 build battle just because, I mean, the wins count in your stats. That's kind of important. So I would definitely consider switching over if you're on 1.14. And yeah, I mean, I think that's about it really for what I wanted to talk about today. Not sure if I missed anything, but if I did, please let me know in the comments how I could add on to it. I guess right now I'll just kind of go off and just talk about some strategies for building and just really dive into those and things you could do to like really improve your game. a big thing a lot of people do is this thing called spam building. And obviously that sounds kind of self-explanatory, I guess. But what it is pretty much is just building really, really fast. And in a game like Build Battle where you're timed to complete a build, it's a super, super important skill that you're gonna have to master, especially if you want to like hit these higher scores and really like be a competitive force in the game. You're gonna have to know how to spam build. There's like I don't think there's a single builder that just doesn't spam build or like know how to at least, because the truth is like you literally can't like get by without that skill. Like everyone needs it. Like if you're a detail builder, you still have to like know how to spam out some terrain, you know? And a lot of people struggle with it, but it's something you're gonna have to get through. So I definitely consider jumping that hoop in the beginning, really trying your best to spam build right out of the gate. So by the time you're at the higher scores, it's a lot easier for you. Another thing I notice is when you're at a lower score, people don't expect that much from you. So if you do, like, if you're a really good player right out of the gate, like you're an insane rookie, you still might lose games just because, like, people are thinking, like, you're hacking. I mean, that even happens if you're, like, a master, though. Like, people will accusate you in Build Battle, and you kind of have to, like, ignore it because, like, it happens to all of us. And we're all going to have games where we lose against things like Among Us builds or, you know, those body parts that I'm not going to talk about because I'm trying to keep this episode family friendly if I could. But, yeah, pretty much. There's just a lot that is gonna happen, like that will demotivate you, but you just really gotta push through. I mean, that's really how a lot of grinds work. It's just discipline. The discipline to keep going despite losing like 20 games in a row. You have to keep playing. You have to play that 21st game, you know? And also another thing like that I think is a really important thing that a lot of people don't really look at too much is PPG, or points per game. And that's a stat that I think that should be like the most important stat to you. That should be the stat you're trying to develop. A lot of people consider win-loss ratio to be the best. And I mean, I guess in some games like, I don't know, like Bed Wars or something, like maybe your win-loss ratio is kind of important there, but in Build Battle, I think PPG is probably the most important one, especially if you're like, if you care more about your score than anything else. If you care more about your wins, then I guess, yeah, win-loss ratio. But if you care about your score, you know, if you're just trying to get it master, you're really going to want to maximize that PPG. And really, like, that's something that's so key. And Teams mode is a great way to really maximize that PPG too, just because you get like 35 points for a win, which is more than 25. You get, I don't know, I think you honestly, you get some pretty good PPG out of Teams because the voting's pretty fair, the scoring's pretty high. I think it's arguably the best mode for score. But yeah, I mean, sure, there's people that'll probably like be in the comments like, oh no, I win like every single game against the build and my lobby loads up in like 3 seconds, so clearly it's better. But I mean, I don't know, you know, you gotta find what works for you. And personally for me, Teams works, and for my friends that I've seen, Teams works for them too, so I'd really recommend that mode. Oh man, I'm like just kind of going off the rails. Like this whole thing is completely improvised. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm not reading anything. I'm just kind of talking to you, and it's a little interesting, but something I'd also recommend getting good at would be eyes, I would say, cuz I feel like the eyes are kind of like the soul of the build. It's really important to like know how to do them. And a lot of people kind of overlook it and they just put down like 2 blocks or like 2 heads and call it a day. But if you have really good eyes on your build, that can kind of carry you to a few wins. I honestly think that's true. Something I'd recommend is using white heads on like the black part of your eyes, because that kind of gives it a look like the sun's shining on it, a little gleam. Something I started to personally do is I would use like white stained glass. I glitch some snow blocks up in my white part of my eyes, but you guys don't have to do any of that. That stuff's pretty complicated. But yeah, the main thing, like just using the white heads, really, really big and helps a ton on the build. Um, Something else I would really recommend is kind of learning like proportions, because a lot of themes are going to involve you to build organics, which an organic is basically something that's alive. You're going to have to kind of have like a basic understanding of anatomy to be able to do it right. Because if you don't know like any anatomy, you're gonna do something really strange. Like you're gonna give like a tiger a beak, or I don't know, something like that wouldn't really make sense. And I mean, I see that so much with a lot of masters, and I think that that's actually a really important thing, is that it looks like the theme. It looks like what it's supposed to be, because if it doesn't really look like it, no one's gonna vote for you, because they're just gonna be like, oh, this guy, like, they just spam build. I don't know, like, what the hell is this? Like, what am I supposed to be voting on? So that's important. It really has to look like the theme. It has to be the theme. And one more thing I really want to recommend before closing this out, of course, is please, please, please build using the wall. I know like a lot of people kind of look down upon it or whatever, but building using the wall is seriously like the best strategy to make big builds, especially when you're like starting out and you don't really have like high CPS or anything that like helps with big builds in the middle. Building with a wall lets you just do half the build, and the other half, like, just pretend it's like, going through the wall the other half. And it's a technique a lot of people use, and it's really, really, really beneficial because you can make your builds twice as big, literally. So definitely recommend doing that. Something I personally do, I focus so much on my heads. I feel like the head of the build is so important. I know there's a lot of masters that like disagree with that, like the Estelles out there, but the truth is, like, the head is what people are gonna look at. Every single build, the head is what like they're gonna look for. Like if the theme's dinosaur and you build a dinosaur, they're looking at that T-Rex head. They want to see a T-Rex head. Like they don't care like really too much about the body or any of the other stuff. They care about the head so much. And like same with like a dragon or anything really. So I think it's important to try to like dedicate like a good 2 minutes or 3 minutes even in some games, like just on the head, because the head is so important. There's even some masters out there that'll literally just build the head for the theme. So if the theme was like elephant, instead of building like the whole elephant body, they would just do like an elephant head or something. Or like for clown, they would just do a head. I mean, I've seen it a lot with Pennywise builds. Back in the day, those were like really popular. And yeah, I mean, pretty much they would just build like a straight up head in against the wall pretty much, and yeah, I mean, it would win. Like it does pretty good, and seriously, heads, I cannot stress it enough. Heads are so important. Definitely learn techniques on how to do things. Like facial features are really important too. Like learn how to make noses, lips, ears, cheeks. I think cheeks are something a lot of people actually overlook, but having the right cheeks in a build is actually really beneficial. And yeah, I mean, with all that out of the way, with all that fun stuff, I think that about wraps it up for the first episode of the Goldfish podcast. Now, in the future episodes, I'm not really sure what I'm going to be talking about. Like, maybe I'll even like have guest people on, or I have no idea, honestly. This is just kind of a wet run, just me trying things out, dipping my feet in the pool, like just seeing if it's warm or not. And yeah, I mean, I think honestly in the future maybe I'll like talk about different games or just different things, because I think this podcast could go in any direction really. And just today I wanted to talk a little bit about Build Battle and yeah, just help you guys out. I know a lot of people struggle with it, and me personally, like I did at the beginning, it took me a month and a half to get master at the start, but I really think if you like put your foot down, if you know what you're doing, if you have the right discipline, it could take you 2-3 weeks to get it. So thank you guys so much for listening. If you're on YouTube, please drop a subscribe and a like. I would really appreciate it. And I'm gonna try to get this podcast on Spotify, but I'm not sure if I'll be able to. So yeah, anyways, thanks guys so much for listening, and hope all of you have a great day. Peace.